Okay, that'll probably be a little bit better. Sorry about that. Nice background.
Thanks.
I am doing it fast. I am doing it fast. I can. Are you ready?
Yep. Yeah, I'm ready to start whenever you are.
Well,
This is Cesar Delgado from Bax Road of Illinois on Foreign Progress with Nick SU of Illinois. How are you today?
I'm doing well today, Caesar. Just finished up marking off some plots. We're hoping to plant some corn tomorrow and get some trials in the ground. So it's a good day.
That's great. What you do recommend to farmers for pesticides in the state of Illinois?
Well, you know, it really depends, Caesar, on the target pest that you have. What we want to do first when we're putting out an insecticide application is we want to assess the need for that application by assessing the insect population that we have. So for instance, if you have a damaging population of corn rootworm in your field, you might want to put down a granular insecticide or a liquid insecticide within the furrow when you plant. In some cases, you might target adult corn rootworms if they're feeding on the silks, for instance, with a broadcast insecticide later on in the season. And when we talk about soybeans, we're looking more at broadcast insecticides, but it just depends, you know, really on making sure we're at an economic threshold, making sure that we have an insect population that justifies that insecticide and that field is actually going to benefit in terms of preserved yield from that insecticide. Depending on what that insect pest is, we want to make sure that we choose an insecticide that's effective. So not all insecticides are going to effectively control all insects. You'll use a different active ingredient. You might use a pyrethroid insecticide for corn rootworm, for instance. You would use a completely different insecticide if you had spider mites, or you might use a completely different insecticide if you had loopers down in southern Illinois, for instance. So it just depends on the situation, on the insect that you're trying to control, and on what sort of a population you're looking at, determining whether or not you have that damaging population, that economic threshold of insects or their damage.
Do you think about the Campbell or Group 15?
You know, on the herbicide side, I have a tendency to do what I'm told by the farm managers. It's not really my area of expertise. Certainly we use a lot of dicamba in a lot of different situations here, and the situation where you might use a group 15 is going to be a little bit different. For instance, a lot of the herbicide applications I put out personally are limited to Roundup when we're terminating cereal rye, for instance. But of course, we have to worry about weed control in our experiments, just like anybody does if they're growing corn or growing soybean. I'm not as good at it as some folks maybe are, but I do my best.
Oh my goodness, I forgot that you were a bug guy. Sorry.
That's no problem, Caesar. Like I said, I've got to know a little bit about weeds. I probably know just enough to be dangerous on the herbicide front, but we've got to try to keep our plots clean just like everybody else.
But what do you recommend? Mixes with herbicide and pesticides together.
Typically with an insecticide, I'm not going to recommend putting that out with a herbicide application unless you have a need for it. So for instance, if you're putting out a herbicide application and you know you have a cutworm population out there, you've observed black cutworm cutting your plants, you're at or close to an economic threshold, then that's a fine time to tank mix that insecticide in, assuming that you've got compatible materials, assuming that you've read the label and all that. But we don't like putting an insecticide in just because we're going across the field with herbicide, even though it's cheap, because, typically if there's a damaging insect population out there, you'll know it. They're not necessarily going to sneak up on you. So we want to make sure that, again, that we have a reason to use that insecticide if we're going to use it.
How is the Japanese beetle population of this year?
I'll find out probably the same time as everybody else. We do a pretty poor job of predicting Japanese beetle populations based on what happened the year before. It seemed like we were in a little bit of a cycle a few years ago where it was increasing every year, particularly in parts of Western Illinois. Last couple of years have been fairly mild. In addition to just how many there are out there, they're, of course, a grub in the soil during the year, and then they'll emerge as an adult here towards the end of June, beginning of July. Depends on how many of them are out there right now. It depends on the weather. It depends on diseases, natural enemies. So variety of different factors. And ultimately, just like everybody else, I find out if it's going to be a big Japanese beetle year when it happens.
Yeah, we've been dry since October into middle of March.
Yeah, and I know parts of the country are really concerned about that. We're doing better, at least here in Central Illinois, than some others. I know up where you're at, you're a little bit drier than we are, I think.
How is Eastern Central Illinois and Southern Illinois?
Here in East Central Illinois, just from my observations, seems like things are going fairly well. Again, we haven't been as dry here as y'all have, and we've gotten a lot of planting done. Haven't been in Southern Illinois a lot, but my understanding is they've made pretty good progress on planting throughout most of Southern Illinois. Of course, every place down there is a little bit different. But yeah, I've been spending my time so far this spring in East Central Illinois, and we're in reasonably good shape.
I saw a lot of dust on my rain bridge.
Yeah, yeah, I know y'all are pretty dry up there. I was up in DeKalb, maybe a week ago tomorrow, planting a trial. And yeah, we had to get pretty deep to find the moisture. I think they've had a little bit of rain since then. So hopefully things are going a little bit better. But yeah, those dry conditions are on a lot of people's minds right now.
Huh? Mm.
I was in central Illinois. Wheat like looking good.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. I don't work on the wheat crop as much as some other folks do, but yeah, glad to hear what you were looking at is looking good.
Near Peoria.
Oh, okay, okay. I'm hoping to head that way soon. We have trials up at Monmouth, past Peoria.
You guys are working with all of Illinois or specific areas?
It depends a little bit on the year, but we do try to get around the state. Depends a little bit on the issue that we're working on. So, for instance, I'll have corn rootworm trials here in East Central Illinois, but we'll have some trials up at Monmouth, up at DeKalb, and then on up into northwestern Illinois, hoping up by Freeport to have some rootworm trials. With some of our cover crop work, we go a little bit further south where they're more likely to see some different issues with slugs or armyworm, for instance. So we'll do some sampling down in southern Illinois for that. Other years, we've been down by St. Louis with some trials. We go out west to Perry, Illinois for some trials. So we end up getting around the state a fair amount. Of course, with insects, you have very different issues in northern Illinois than you have in southern Illinois, and we're doing our best to understand a wide variety of different insect issues that farmers might have.
How about in LaSalle County or something like in Bureau?
I don't have anything in LaSalle or Bureau this year. Wouldn't surprise me if we end up that way on a field call or something like that this season, but I don't have anything planned for those counties this season.
Illinois is a big ag state.
Yeah, yeah, it sure is. I mean, we got 23 million acres of corn and soybeans, something like that. It's pretty impressive. It's a pretty big deal here, and it's exciting to work in it.
Illinois is a big ag state, expect in Chicago, unfortunately.
Yeah, there are not a lot of large scale crops grown in Chicago anyway. I know there's a lot of folks interested in doing some urban agriculture, but yeah, most of the corn, soybean, wheat production. We're looking at the rest of the state.
Yeah, nice to see you. Well, I'm Cesar Delgado from Bax Road of Illinois on Foreign Progress. Hey, please subscribe to my podcast in Illinois Farm Boys.
All right. Thank you, Caesar. It's nice to see you too.
You're welcome.